Kamala Harris endorses Nixonomics. That's right. That's right. She's all for stopping so-called price gouging. She want to control the prices, and we all know what happens when government comes in and try to control business prices. We saw it in the Soviet Union. We saw it in Argentina. We saw it in Venezuela. It never works well. This is communism, and communism does not work. So we go talk a little bit about that, and this is what we get. We finally see her policy. No wonder she was trying to hold on to it and not trying to tell people what her policies were, because they're a disaster. Other than the two that she stole from Trump. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But before we get started, go ahead and hit that like button, share this out so we can get this information out there. Subscribe if you're not already a subscriber, and hit that alarm bell so you know when I'm putting out new stuff. Also, check out my link tree in the description. It has a link to my Patreon. That's where I talk about things that I can't talk about here. Also, follow me on X, where I post news and stuff throughout the day. I asked a really great question on X today. Y'all might want to check that out. All right, so let's talk about this news. Now, this comes from the Wall Street Journal, from the editorial board. And they report that we wrote Friday that Kamala Harris was likely to continue President Biden's unfinished Build Back Better agenda, but it turns out we were far too optimistic. The policy priorities the vice president laid out Friday are much worse, including a plan to impose national price controls on food and groceries. Again, you only see this in communist countries, and it never ends well. You end up having food shortages when you do things like this. Because think about it. If you have price controls on bread, and you said bread can't be any more than $1, but it costs you more than $1 to make the bread. So you wouldn't any longer make bread because it'd be too expensive to make, because you have to charge less. So because there wouldn't be any profit. You would make no profit from it. So what's the point of even making this product? And that's what happens. And that's what we've seen that in the Soviet Union. We know. We've seen that in Argentina and in Venezuela, like I said earlier. We've seen this before. We know what will happen. But the cat is out the bag now. She can no longer hide that she's a communist. But Ms. Harris's political problem is that the Biden-Harris economic policies have delivered inflation and declining real incomes. The high price of food is a particular sore point, and the vice president's response is to make it worse by resorting to Venezuelan-style left-wing populism. That's no exaggeration. On Friday, she floated a, quote, first ever federal ban on price gouging on food and groceries, including new authority for the Federal Trade Commission and state attorneys general to punish companies for charging too much. Who's to say they're charging too much? You know what I'm saying? Government don't know anything about prices. Remember, the government are the ones that pay $100 for a nail. So how are they going to tell us how much bread should cost? This is just crazy. This makes absolutely no sense. Why would you do this unless you are intentionally trying to destroy this country? Because it makes no sense. But it sounds like legislation introduced by Senator Elizabeth Warren that would ban, quote, grossly excessive prices as determined by the Federal Trade Commission. Business violations would carry a penalty of up to 5% of annual revenue. This would effectively let the FTC set prices. But what is an excessive price? Think about it. Most grocery stores run on like one or 2% on 1 or 2% margin. They really don't make that much money. But is $4 too much for a gallon of milk in Omaha? Is a different price in Miami? FTC Chair Lena Khan and her army of bureaucrats will presumably decide, which means we will give more money to the FTC for them to come up with these crazy stuff, these crazy things. But there's also no evidence that supermarkets or other food retailers are gouging anyone. In fact, there's been a study that showed that there really was no price gouging. Inflation costs are making inflation is making the cost of food go up. They're not going up because the supermarkets are trying to gouge and make more money off of people. That's not what's happening here. But food prices are higher than they were before the Biden presidency, but That is because of inflation. That's what I just alluded to. And retail grocery prices have risen roughly in tandem with wholesale prices. Supermarkets also have narrow margins of sales, roughly 2% compared to 8% on average for other businesses. That's what I was saying. 1 to 2% really is what we see grocery stores make on profit. That's really nothing, really. And so then you're gonna come in and try to tell these companies to lower their prices when they already only making like 1 or 2% profit. Fixing prices is a recipe for shortages, as controls would discourage grocery suppliers. Voila, empty store shelves. Price controls have led to shortages everywhere they've been tried, from Moscow to Caracas. The last American president to impose wage and price controls was Richard Nixon in the early 1970s. He had to stage a humiliating retreat amid shortages and market dislocations, and prices immediately soared when controls were lifted. So we have test cases already. We have case studies already that show that this does not work. So why is she pushing this? I told y'all what was happening. The leftist the Democrats are intentionally trying to destroy this country. If Ms. Harris really believes in price fixing, she lacks the most basic understanding of economics. If she is merely floating it to be able to get, quote, price gouging into a speech, her cynicism is also telling. And again, I wish I had the study pulled up, but it was a study that was done that showed that there was no price gouging going on. This is made up stuff. It's made up stuff because it's really a deflection, because if there is no price gouging going on, that mean the government, the Biden-Harris administration is responsible for the high prices of things, and they can't run off of that. So of course they have to blame someone, and they're blaming the businesses. Ms. Harris's other ideas aren't much better. She wants to expand $3,600 child tax credit with the bonus to $6,000 for newborns, which together will cost more than $1 trillion over a decade. These would be essentially a guaranteed income, since Ms. Harris wants to make the credits fully refundable, i.e. available for people who don't work. I will say that Trump also has a policy. I think he was saying $5,000, so $1,000 less. So she actually stole this idea from Trump as well. She also wants to revive the American Rescue Plan earned income tax credit boost for childless households, roughly tripling it to $1,500 from $600. Democrats claim the credit promotes work, but studies show otherwise. It also rife with fraud. The Internal Revenue Service estimates the, quote, improper payment rate is about 25%. The Biden-Harris inflation has made homes unaffordable for most young families, and her brainstorm for that is more subsidies. So instead of trying to go in and fix the problem, she want to throw money at it, which won't work. Ms. Harris wants $25,000 in down payment assistance for first-time home buyers. That's not going to help. I mean, it's going to, because the inflation cost, it's still going to be inexpensive for people to buy houses. They just won't have to do the down payment. But if they have to buy a house and it's $3,000 a month and you can't afford it, what is a down payment going to do? It's still, the housing costs are still high. But this will merely drive home prices higher. States and localities mainly regulate housing, but Ms. Harris wants to federalize it with the bonanza of Washington programs to encourage, quote, affordable home construction. Government is not the answer. See, that's the problem with Democrats. They think government is the answer to everything, where it's not. The free market is the answer. If you deregulate and let the free market run, we wouldn't have these problems. But Ms. Harris has endorsed the Biden plan to condition tax breaks for developers on rent caps, which will discourage new housing investments. No state has spent more on housing than her native California, yet it has the nation's highest home prices. Make that make sense. Make that make sense. I told you, whenever government goes in to try to solve a problem, it almost always ends up worse. As a result of sun-dry regulation, it costs more than $1 million to build a so-called, quote, affordable housing unit in the Garden State. That is just ridiculous. We could go on about her other ideas, such as her embrace of Mr. Biden's $5 trillion in tax increases. Mind you, the middle class is going to be taxed. Our taxes are going to go up because he refuses to renew Trump's tax cuts, which mostly benefited the middle class and the working class, which studies showed as well. But the idea she claimed as her own Friday revealed a candidate whose economic judgment is deeply flawed. Most definitely. I think it's by design. Y'all know how I feel about this. I say it time and time again. They're intentionally trying to turn the United States into a third world country. They know that this is a bad idea. They know there's no way possible you don't know that price controls is a terrible idea. We never seen it ever work in history. But yet she thinks she can come in and do this and it's going to work. But y'all let me know what y'all think about this. Leave your comments down below. Like, share, subscribe, and check out jjthepsychotherapist.com for the latest in news. Until next time, peace.